The BRSCC Mazda MX-5 SuperCup is brought to you by Gads Shocks and Townsend Vehicle Hire Rugby.
Hello and welcome to rounds 10 and 11 of the 2016 BRSCC Mazda MX-5 SuperCup. This time you find us at the fantastic Brands Hatch circuit in Kent, where the second half of the season is about to kick off. One driver will hope for good fortunes though is Championship points leader James Baldwin. He suffered engine troubles in Friday testing, which means it's been a race against time to get his car fixed. It certainly has been, and he'll want to try and repeat the victory which he took last time out at Alton Park. Speaking of which, there were two cracking races, and here's race commentator Andy McEwan to take you through them and what you may have missed.
The previous two rounds at Alton Park saw arguably the most entertaining pair of races so far this year, with the action up and down the field more intense than ever. In race 1, Championship leader Alan Henderson lost several places with this off on the final lap, and with it, important championship points. Tom Roach took the race win from James Baldwin in second. It was James who snatched the lead from Tom early on in race 2. Tom did fight back to retake the lead whilst Henderson had another nightmare race. Once again, it was very close indeed at the sharp end, with Baldwin making a late move to snatch another race win. That means that arriving at the next rounds of Brands Hatch, there are only 3 points between James Baldwin and Tom Roach at the top on points. Alan Henderson is third, fourth for Johnny Greensmith, and fifth for Liam Murphy, still just about in contention. For many drivers, the start of qualifying here at Brands Hatch did not go to plan, with several cars throwing themselves at the scenery within the first few minutes. Ray Worley was one car that got stuck, and there was then a 3-car incident at Paddock Hill Bend, bringing out the red flags. The reason? Significantly cooler temperatures in qualifying than the drivers experienced in practice, meaning a significant lack of grip. Liam Murphy overcame it to get 5th quickest, with Jack Harding managing to get onto the outside of row number 2, benefiting from a tow from his teammate. 3rd quickest was James Baldwin, whilst Tom Roach got himself onto the pole position, just ahead of Alan Henderson. The pair separated by just 44 one-thousandths of a second. Tom set his quickest lap of the session late on after a mid-session tyre change, where he found a little bit more grip and that crucial extra few thousandths. So it's Roach on pole with Henderson alongside him. James Baldwin and Jack Harding make up row 2. Liam Murphy and Johnny Greensmith row 3, with David Chapman making a welcome return on the 4th row of the grid. Will Chapman and Richard Wickham round out the top 10. Jeremy Crook had a decent qualifying in 11th, with Chris Dawkins alongside him on the 6th row. Well, we've already seen what a difference a slight change in circuit conditions can make in qualifying. Now it is a wet circuit that greets the drivers for the first race of the weekend here at Brands Hatch. Away we go from the front row of the grid. It is Alan Henderson who gets the best start from the outside of that front row. We're on board with Andy Coombs making his debut in the MX-5 SuperCup, and he's right in the thick of the action heading towards Paddock Hill Bend. A last-minute rain shower as the cars were gridding up for this race has set us up for an intriguing race, and already one getting caught out. That is unfortunately quite a sizable shunt for Jeremy Crook and George Grant, who had collected him down at the bottom of Paddock Hill Bend. They will both be out of the race pretty much on the spot. George is trying to continue just to get himself into a slightly safer position, but already we're seeing just how slippery it is out there. It's not fully wet, but it is definitely damp and greasy, with maybe a hint of a dry racing line. Offline, very, very slippery indeed. The field streaming their way through at the end of the opening lap and out onto the pit straight, with good dices all the way down the order as per usual. That was Simon Goddard getting involved. On board with Andy Coombs, there's the instant in front, and how on earth did Jim Hart avoid that? That could very easily have been his second 3-car incident at Paddock Hill Bend this weekend. Right then, leads up towards Drew. It is Henderson leading the way. Tom Roach is second. James Baldwin there in number 2 is in third. 4th position for Jack Harding, and 5th place, look, having made a good start, is Will Chappell making a welcome return to the series. Speaking of welcome returns, there is David Chapman, who unfortunately had to stop racing due to a lack of funds midway through last year, but was leading the championship at the time, so he is a definite potential front runner as he makes a return here at Brands Hatch. There's Tom Roach up in second position though, the Green Machine trying to find a way past Alan Henderson, and these really are the 3 drivers set to contest the championship, I think, now in the final half of the season. whilst a couple of others are still just about in contention, namely Liam Murphy and Johnny Greensmith. These are the three who've really been the pace setters all year, and they're side by side for the race lead now between Alan Henderson and Tom Roach, who's trying to go around the outside of him into Paddock Hill Bend. That leaves the door open though for a potential opportunistic move from James Blake Baldwin, although James wasn't quite close enough. On the exit of the corner, Henderson immediately moves over to driver's right to defend the inside line. Someone was bound to try and go around the outside. It is James Blake Baldwin that's giving it a go. This can work, it gives you the inside line for Graham Hill Bend, but it didn't quite pay off for James on that occasion. So it's Henderson from Roach, from Blake Baldwin. This is further back, and this is Michael Lawson getting into the back of Steve Dolman's car coming into Druids. Steve has a bit of a slide, but luckily saves it. Speaking of a slide, that was Will Chappell looking a little bit loose and ragged through clearways, and that's opened the door for Liam Murphy to get up the inside of him. Two blue and yellow cars side by side for 5th position, as the leading trio couldn't be much closer. Again, Tom Roach is attacking for the lead into Paddock Hill Bend, but once more there's no room on the inside line. James Blake Baldwin though nearly runs straight into the back of him, snatches the front brakes on the way into that very challenging first corner, and they were looking to get away with that one. Up the hill towards Druids, still Henderson though is keeping hold of the lead. Further back, look, Liam Murphy and Will Chappell still side by side. Liam on the inside line through Druids will go through, and that leaves the door wide open for first Johnny Greensmith and now David Chapman to try and find a way through. Dave's on the outside line into Graham Hill Bend though, and that won't work. He squares it back off, gets tucked nicely into the slipstream along the Cooper Straight. You can see the windscreen wipers going. It's not actually raining at the moment, but there is still a hint of spray being kicked up, I'd imagine, from the cars in front. Roach again on the offensive into clearways, but it's just not quite paying off for him, is it? As Alan Henderson is essentially driving around the inside of the circuit, isn't he, trying to keep this long train of MX-5s behind him. This is proper Mazda MX-5 racing. Going to look there again at Will Chappell, who's now defending from Dave Chapman. Dave just looks to the outside into the first corner, more to try and distract Will, I think, than actually pull off the move. But this is a terrific 8-car lead train, isn't it? And all of them absolutely nose to tail. Oh, Dave Chapman finding out just how treacherous it is up at Druids, as he almost got into the back of Will Chappell's car there. It is very, very damp and greasy around this Brands Hatch Indy circuit. Now already we're starting to come up on some potential lappery. That's Greg Catton in the orange car, who will be the first car to go a lap down. Tom Roach is attacking for the race lead as they catch the back markers, and it's actually going to be James Blake Baldwin who potentially gains out of that. Went up the inside of Greg Catton, and I thought for a moment was going to go up the inside of Tom Roach as well. Unfortunately, Jack Harding is rather losing outlook, because up the inside of him has gone Johnny Greensmith. Will Chappell is going to follow him through as well, and of course Liam Murphy's gone through, so that's 3 positions lost, maybe even a 4th if Dave Chapman in the silver and green Paul Sheard guest car could get in on the act. He does. He goes up the inside of Jack on the exit of Paddock Hill Bend, and as they run wheel to wheel up towards the hairpin at Druids, David is on the inside line, and so should hopefully be able to make this one stick. Does he show Jack Harding the edge of the road coming out of Druids? He does. Jack though now has the inside line into Graham Hill Bend, where they come across Ian McDonald in a very precarious position. Dave Chapman was very committed around the outside. He finds the grass though, and Jack Harding goes straight back through. Frustrating for David, he's still stuck behind Ian McDonald as well. He'll now go around the outside of him through Surtees, but that's rather lost David some momentum and quite a lot of time to the cars in front, as Michael Lawson has a bit of a whoopsie at Paddock Hill Bend, falls off the track and just about manages to avoid the tyre barriers. Right, here's the battle up in front. This is now for 2nd position, 3rd position, excuse me, and Liam Murphy's going up the inside of James Blake Baldwin, but James is desperately late on the brakes into Paddock Hill Bend, and not only does he keep hold of the position, he just about makes the corner. He drifts a bit wide on the exit though. Liam Murphy thinks about going back up the inside, but thought better of it, and that's concertinaed them all together. Awful lot of blue cars racing in the MX-5 SuperCup in 2016. You've got 5 of them in a long line here, all dicing over the final step on the podium. Front of the field, Alan Henderson is now starting to streak away. Tom Roach has not really been able to go with him. There are the leading 2, separated by the light blue number 21 car, which is going a lap down. That's Simon Fleet. And then this is what's going on for 3rd. So it's Blake Baldwin in 3rd, Liam Murphy is 4th, Johnny Greensmith is 5th, Will Chappell is 6th, 7th place then for Jack Harding, with Dave Chapman now slightly distant 8th. Out across the start-finish line they go. Simon Fleet gets out of the way of Tom Roach. Are any of these cars going to duck out of line though into Paddock Hill Bend and try for the move? They're all going in on a very, very defensive line. This is the problem where you have a big group of cars like this so close together. you're fearful of attacking too hard, fear of leaving the door open for the car behind you. You daren't really move off the ideal racing line or the defensive line. You can see Will Chappell there, they're going round the outside of Johnny Greensmith. That was ambitious and it didn't quite work. He ends up out over the curve on the exit of the corner, and Jack Harding gets himself alongside briefly. But again, around the outside, that still wasn't going to work. Simon Fleet getting rather in the way, and this is causing chaos in this fight for third position. James Blake Baldwin is not happy at all with Simon Fleet. He manages to hold on to third, but into fourth has now come Johnny Greensmith looking car number 5. So that was a change around. Liam Murphy losing out slightly in the traffic there, out of Graham Hill Bend and along the Cooper Straight, out into the pit straight now though. And can Johnny Greensmith get himself onto the podium? He's been there or thereabouts all year, has Johnny, with the odd podium finish, and this is another very strong showing from him. Not much chance of a race win in this particular race, but he's on the pace for sure. We're on the final lap of the race as well, so last chance saloon for any drivers wanting to gain any ground, and Liam Murphy certainly is trying to. He's going up the inside nearly of Johnny Greensmith in towards Druids. Johnny takes the defensive line though and keeps hold of the position for the time being, and there's now just over half a lap to go for the order to shuffle if it's going to. Jack Harding's going up the inside of Will Chappell. That's a really, really late lunge. They trade a little bit of paint, at least both cars are blue so they won't notice. Back along the Cooper Straight, and yes, Jack's gone through, so nice little move that into 6th position for Jack Harding. Meanwhile, up in towards the final corner at Clearways, here comes the fight for 4th. Oh, and Liam Murphy dives up the inside of Johnny Greensmith. That was an ambitious move. He's run a little bit wide, so Johnny gets back up the inside of him, and it will be a drag race to the line. All on his own at the start-finish line, though, and seeing the checkered flag is Alan Henderson. Yet another race win. Tom Roach is in 2nd position, James Blake Baldwin's 3rd, and that was very close indeed for 4th place. It just goes the way of Liam Murphy by 37 1/1000ths of a second over Johnny Greensmith in 5th. Confirmation of the result then, a 2.3 second winning margin for Henderson over Roach, with Blake Baldwin, Liam Murphy and Johnny Greensmith rounding out the top 5, followed by Jack Harding, Will Chappell, Tom Collins, Richard Wicklin and Jamie Goddard. David Chapman unfortunately only managed 11th, with Simon Goddard down in 12th. Good result for Ray Worley there inside the top 15. We lost though Steve Dolman, Carl Garnett, Chris Dawkins, Jeremy Crook and George Grant.
I was hoping to come back a little bit stronger than Alton. I had good pace at Alton, but just really the races didn't go my way at all and went backwards during the weekend. So I was hoping we would get there this weekend, and yeah, it's went off to a good start really. Probably 3/4 of the way through the race, James made a dive on Tom there, and that gave us a little bit of a gap, and then I could drive my own lines and kind of set a decent pace, and it was a bit more comfortable. As the first part, it definitely wasn't.
Yeah, really close race. Really enjoyed it. It's so close. I mean, Alan defended really well to start with. It's always the same. When you're behind, you feel like you're so much faster. But if you're in the lead, it's just so easy for the people behind to stay with you. And then it's all James's fault because he took a lunge and then let Alan get away, and yeah, couldn't catch him.
Yeah, and it was a really good race. It's just so difficult to get past around here, and Alan and Tom are, they're amazing drivers, and they just don't hardly make a mistake and make it extremely difficult to get past. But I made a lunge on Tom, got past, and then he made a lunge on me like the next bend, and that was just enough in the whole 20 minutes for Alan to get up a gap so that he could take his own lines, and he was away.
Well, it may well have been a damp first race, but the sun has arrived for race number 2. Find out what happens after the break.
One race down and one to go now in the MX-5 SuperCup, and the cars are once again preparing in the holding areas. The sun decides to come out and grace us with its presence. Now, before we get into the race, rather than talk to a driver, we're going to talk a little bit of tech in terms of the tyres for this season, because last year they ran with Federals, but for this year, we're going to use Ray Worley's car as an example. You can see they've switched to Avon tyres. Now, these tyres for this season not only give them increased grip, but also confidence and performance. A lot of drivers have been saying they can perform better in the dry and in the wet, and that has been a key factor in a ton of drivers closing up towards the front and making it one of the most competitive SuperCup seasons in recent years. So let's find out who's got the goods to actually win this race. Let's hand you back over to Andy McEwan to take you through the grid for race 2.
The drivers in the Masters Championship in race 1 were right in the thick of the action. For some, maybe a bit too close to the action, with Jeremy Crook and George Grant out on the first corner. Michael Lawson and Steve Dolman made contact before Steve spun and then retired on the last lap of the race. Greg Catton did battle with Ian McDonald, finishing 8th and 7th respectively, whilst Jim Hart was a solid 6th. 5th place in the Masters was Simon Fleet, who had a race-long dice with the number 41 car of David Willoughby. It was a good race for Ray Worley, who got himself onto the Masters podium, while Steve Dolman, prior to his retirement, had a good battle with Jeff Gurrier. Gary Townsend was the second highest finisher in the Masters Championship, but he was quite some way behind a dominant Simon Goddard, who won the category and was a solid 12th position overall. Race number 2 then, about to get underway, and the grid is set by the results of race 1, which means it's Alan Henderson on pole with Tom Roach alongside him. Away we go. They both seem to make a fairly even start from the front row of the grid. Gary Townsend behind is making a lot of forward progress, on board with David Chapman, who goes back round the outside of the yellow machine into Paddock Hill Bend. They're 3 abreast in front of him. This is getting very congested indeed through the first corner. David sensibly sticks to the outside line, now comes across to cover the inside. It's side by side for the race lead though, and James Blake Baldwin, much as we saw him do at one point in race 1, locks up both front wheels and nearly clatters into the back of the cars in front of him. Actually, he gains a position and moves through into second. So it is Alan Henderson leading the way, James Blake Baldwin second, third for Tom Roach, fourth Liam Murphy, fifth Johnny Greensmith by the look of it, with Jack Harding I think heading up the next train of cars in sixth. Everybody making it safely through the first few corners this time though, which is good news. Also good news is that we do have George Grant out there in this race. Jeremy Cook though, unfortunately, after also being involved in that first corner incident in race 1, has not been able to make the start, but George Grant's team have done a fantastic job to get the car fixed and back out there. Through towards the completion of the opening lap then, Henderson leading and already starting to get away slightly from the rest of the pack. There is Will Chappell in the blue and yellow Concord Motorsport number 4 machine. Up into the first corner they go, and Henderson will be keen to try and break the toe. The slipstream is something that's always very prominent in Mazda MX-5 racing, especially around here at Brands Hatch, and that was an ambitious move from Tom Roach up the inside of his big championship rival James Blake Baldwin, and they just make a bit of contact. James somehow saves the car, but Roach goes through, so Tom Roach with a robust pass there to get through into second position, Blake Baldwin down to third, and look at what that's done. Now Alan Henderson has broken the toe. He's well and truly got away from the rest of the field, and that is dangerous for everyone else, because we know what Alan can do when he's given clear track, and he's clearly on form this weekend, having taken the win in the first race. Up towards Clearways they come. This group of cars really could do with working together actually to try and close back in on him, because in theory a group of cars that are working well together should be quicker than one on their own. Out across the start-finish line we go again. Then Jack Harding trying now to defend from Will Chappell up towards Paddock, and Richard Wicklin, who's having a better showing in race number 2. Chappell goes up the inside of Harding into the first corner. It, I don't think, worked. Let's have a look. Oh, it might have done. They're side by side, and then Richard Wicklin gets into the back of Will Chappell and makes it 3 abreast towards Druid. He backs out of it. Chappell will get the place away from Jack Harding. Can Wicklin now follow him through? There's a bit more casual contact on the exit of the corner, and this is all starting to get very, very interesting indeed. That is then the number 20 car of Tom Collins in behind as well. Great to see Tom back in the championship again and running fairly strongly. On board with David Chapman now, up into the left-hander at Surtees. That looks like Simon Goddard in front of us as we turn our way in towards Clearways. Simon's defending the inside line on the way in, so Dave takes a wide line in to try and carry a bit more speed off the corner, but it's not quite working for him at the moment. Another lap is ticked off for this group of cars, and the Will Chappell Jack Harding scrap has meant that this group have fallen away slightly from the leaders. So this is now a battle for the lower positions within the top 10, in fact just outside the top 5 for 6th position, and Will Chappell runs 2 wheels out into the dirt, and Jack Harding says thank you very much, I'll have that place, and Richard Wicklin says I'm coming through as well, and they again trade a little bit of paint on the run into Druids. Now it's Tom Collins' turn to draw alongside the Concord Motorsport machine, but he's on the wrong side of the road down into Graham Hill Bend, and so Will Chappell, despite the dirty tyres he's now got on the left-hand side, is able to hold on to that position, saves that with just losing 2. Down the Cooper Straight into the very, very quick left-hander at Surtees. Full commitment required through there. And speaking of full commitment, there is David Chapman trying to go around the outside of Simon Goddard. That's brave. It doesn't work though, unfortunately. These are just in behind that scrap we've been following for the last lap or so. Further back, this is the number 8 machine of Andy Coombs doing battle with Jim Hart in car number 27. This is a nice little dice going on into Clearways. Oh dear, and Coombs goes off, and I think the front left suspension's just broken, hasn't it? All on its own, and that is such a shame because he was having a nice little battle there. Finished 16th in the first race to Andy, and that is not the way he wanted his weekend to end. Now, Tom Roach has caught Alan Henderson and has got up the inside of him into Paddock Hill Bend, so all of a sudden, that lead that Alan had has gradually been ebbed away, and Tom Roach is now going through into the race lead. There he goes, takes it away at Druids. So Tom goes through into the race lead. Alan Henderson now has to try and fight back if he can and see whether he can get this race win back. Oh, Roach is very sideways indeed through Graham Graham Hill. Ben loses a bit of momentum down the Cooper Straight, but I think he'll hold on for now. They're pairing off at the front of the field, but we've still got quite some way to go. Back now with Jim Hart, who's doing battle with Steve Dolman further down the order. Steve just picks up another position on the run through the right-hander at Clark Curve. That was a nice move. Further up the order, Dave Chapman has Tom Collins alongside him, heading in towards Druids, and they just touch wing mirrors. Great shot that, as they came under the bridge and up the rise at Halewoods Hill. David unfortunately not enjoying the view too much because Tom Collins goes through, so David will now have to work hard to try and find a way back ahead of the number 20 machine in front of him. Down the Cooper Straight, in towards Surtees they go. Just behind, you can see the Simon Goddard battle. So David Chapman got past Simon earlier on, and now has escaped up the road slightly. Now back with the leaders. This is a replay of how Roach got the lead. Blake Baldwin, though, has now gone through into second place, and this is how it happened. Got up the inside through Druids and completed the manoeuvre on the run down towards Graham Hill Ben. We're now on the last lap of the race, though, and any one of these four cars could win it. Roach has the lead. Henderson, though, is trying to go around the outside of him at Druids. This is, again, very ambitious. It can work, but it doesn't on this occasion. That now allows James Blake Baldwin to get alongside him in towards Graham Hill Bend. Oh, Henderson's late on the brakes, maybe a bit too late on the brakes, gets into the back of the race leader Tom Roach. They're almost three abreast off the corner. Fantastic racing, and somehow Tom Roach comes out of it still in the race lead. Into second place now has changed Blake Baldwin, though, and third position, yes, is Liam Murphy. So once again, like we saw at Alton, Alan Henderson losing ground on the last lap. Into the last corner they go, and there's more contact. Liam Murphy gets into the back of James Blake Baldwin, who for the second time this weekend makes a miraculous save. Liam slots in behind him, and all of a sudden Henderson's back through into second place. Tom Roach it is, though, who's going to be laughing all the way to the checkered flag. He takes the race win and sees all of that unfolding behind him. Second position will somehow go the way of Alan Henderson, with James Blake Baldwin hanging on to third, Liam Murphy fourth, and it was Jack Harding in fifth position. What cracking racing that was. Johnny Greensmith sixth, Richard Wickland seventh, Tom Collins eighth, David Chapman gets the top 10 in ninth position, with Will Chappell 11th, ahead of the two Goddards, Simon and Jamie, not related, 11th and 12th, Jeff Gurrier 13th, Gary Townsend 14th, and Michael Lawson gets a good result in 15th place. We lost, unfortunately, from that one Chris Dawkins, Andy Coombs, and Jeremy Crook was a non-starter.
Well, to start with, just working like mad. Me and James were scrapping the first couple of laps, and then we both kind of worked together and caught Alan. And once I managed to get past the first corner, and yeah, it was just mental, really. But I mean, it's brilliant. It's so close. And these guys are awesome drivers. You know, you can really trust them. You know exactly what they're going to do. They're not going to do anything stupid. It's a shame James had it coming together on the last corner, because that didn't seem right. You know, but yeah, I mean, great race, and really pleased.
I thought it was going to be a fairly plain, straightforward, just drive around, do the best laps you can kind of race. But James and Tom kind of realised I was getting away, got the heads down, worked together a little bit, and then it all bunched back up again. On the last lap there, I tried to go around the outside into Druids, and kind of I was into second, but by the time we got down to Graham Hill, Tom was really slow on the apex, so I couldn't get my drive out, and James and Liam came past again. And then the last corner they came together, and I managed to nip through into second. So it was an opportunistic move at the end there, just everything unfolded in front of us and I took what was there.
Yeah, really hard fought race. Alan and Tom drove really well. Unfortunately, it didn't work out for me on the last bend. I think the point now Tom is slightly leading, but three more meetings to go, so some points to be gathered.
Well, after two hugely entertaining races here at Brands Hatch, this is what it's done to the points. Just 9 points cover the top three, with Tom Roach only 2 points clear of James Blake Baldwin in the championship lead. Alan Henderson's third, whilst Johnny Greensmith and Liam Murphy are a little too distant now. It's likely to become a 3-horse race.
What a magnificent weekend's racing in the MX-5 SuperCup, with wins for both Tom Roach and Alan Henderson, and they're going to try and strengthen their championship charges even further next time out at Donington Park. But don't count out James Blake Baldwin. 2 strong third places keeps him firmly in the hunt. If you want to keep up with everything the championship is up to, you can head to the website mx5supercup.co.uk. You can also do so by following them on Twitter. For myself, Scott Woodwiss, and all of us here at Brands Hatch, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time at Donington Park.